All in Sports Network. We love sports.
It is Tuesday, February 25th, 2025 is the date. Thought it was kind of fun. This is your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns right here on All In Horns. I'm Tanner Carlson. That is Jake Jimerson, and this is brought to you by Rogue Sports Network. We have a jam-packed episode for you today, so a lot of topics. We're going to just try to roll them out and talk about them briefly, move on to the next one. But we have a long list of things, but I do think that we can get through it relatively easily. However, we always have, a little bit of a sidebar from time to time, Jake and I. So without further ado, just went final moments ago before recording this. We'll go ahead and lead with the number one Texas Longhorns women's basketball team covering the spread of 30.5 points over Georgia with a win tonight, 57-26. Not a great game played in terms of scoring on either side, especially for Georgia. 10 points in the second half, but Texas women's takes care of business as they're supposed to, as the number one team in the country. First time this team has been number one, or this program has been number one since 2004. So been 21 years, almost to the date. I think it was like February 16th was the last time that they were ranked number one in the country. And so just a week and some change since the last time that they were number one in the country. And so, Jake, exciting for the program. Glad that they came out, took care of business against a team they were supposed to take care of business against. They covered.
If you told me they were going to cover scoring 57 points, I would have said no way. But they found a way to cover while scoring 57 points, and with a 30.5 point spread, that's pretty impressive in its own different kind of way.
Yeah.
They scored 40% of their points in the fourth quarter, by the way. Right. Won that quarter 23-4. Georgia had I'm going to go by quarter breakdown real quick. 5 points, 11 points, 6 points, 4 points.
Yeah, that's all four of their scoring quarters.
And Georgia's horrible, just to be clear. They're 2-12 in conference. You can never lose to a team with, only a couple wins or less in conference play, especially if you're Texas in any sport. That would surely never happen.
Especially a winless conference team.
Yeah, no, that would never happen. That is their lowest point total of the year. I believe by far. I think the lowest they've scored other than that is, of course, against South Carolina at 42. Yeah. But still by far their lowest scoring game, but good to take care of business. Maybe, I didn't get to watch too much of this game, but maybe just playing with a little bit of nerves offensively behind that new ranking. They shot way too many threes. That was the big thing that stuck out.
3 of 15. They're not a 3-point shooting team.
Shouldn't be shooting more than like 9 threes in a game.
My mark for Texas is 10. If they shoot over 10, then it's too much. If they shoot under 10, they're probably right on track of where they need to be. That's kind of where I've set that mark for this women's team is 10 in a game is okay.
Yeah. So maybe if
they're decent looks, if they're decent to good looks.
Yeah. I'm fine with 10, but yeah, once you start getting over 10 with this team, it's just, you're probably only going to make 3 to 4 of them. It feels like 3 of 9 is a pretty regular line for them at the 3-point, which isn't a bad percentage. It's just, it doesn't feel like the amount of makes goes up with the more they shoot. And so, yeah,
they're maybe good for about 3 or 4 a game, regardless of how many they shoot.
and teams in the tournament are going to play them as to give the 3, and you got to try to knock some down for sure, but you also just still have to stay true to your identity to a point. Yes. But they took care of business. They covered, and that's all that matters.
40 rebounds to Georgia's 23. Basically dominated in every other aspect of this game.
Yeah, dominated on the scoreboard. They just didn't score a lot. Yeah. is the caveat there.
For sure. Some big coaching news, Jake, in the Texas football world. Obviously, everyone has kind of heard the news by now. Terry Joseph has been hired and poached to the NFL, to the New Orleans Saints. Damn you, Kellen Moore. I've had to say that many times in my lifetime, regardless if he was coaching for my team or against my team. Cost of success is starting to show at the positional coaching regime. However, I think, Jake, you and I both still pretty impressed with the retention of this staff
Extremely.
From Coach Sarkisian. But 3 position coaches have now come and gone since Sark has taken over, and we've started to see success within this offseason. Tashard Choice, running back coach, went to the Lions. Blake Gideon, the defensive coordinator, now at Georgia Tech. And obviously Terry Joseph to the Saints, have been replaced by Chad Scott. The running back coach at West Virginia will be the running backs coach. Mark Orphy will be secondary. More so cornerbacks came from Rutgers. And Jake, I think some breaking news right before we started to hit record, Dwayne Aquina now rejoining this staff to replace the Terry Joseph hire.
Yeah, it seems like it's more than likely to replace Terry Joseph. I'm not sure if maybe they'll bring on another secondary coach as well. Dwayne Aquina is a little bit older. I'm sure anyone listening to this podcast for the most part is going to be familiar with that name. He was he was on the coaching staff at Texas from 2001. I knew that. I didn't realize it was all the way until 2013. I forgot just how long he was there. He was the assistant head coach while there, the co-defensive coordinator, and he was always a defensive back coach. And I know he was very popular. He's been in Arizona. I know he's been popular there. And so he was kind of rumored that he might have come to Texas last year. But then obviously that didn't happen, but now it's happened this year. And I know the Chad Scott hire is already making waves. So it seems like I know the Mark Orphy hire as well from people that really know ball and keep up with all the positional coaches and know him, are very impressed with him. And so it seems like Sark has done a good job of filling these spots with effective hires and done it quickly as well.
Yeah, and it feels like this staff has communicated very clearly to Sark, because if he was blindsided by any of these, the hiring process would be taking longer than what it is. It feels like to me these guys are having conversations with Sarkisian. They're being upfront. They're being honest, saying, hey, look, I'm getting looked at by the Saints. It's looking more and more likely. It's a great opportunity. What do you think about it? You've been in the NFL. Do you think that this is a good move for me? He's probably being honest, saying, look, we'd love to have you on staff. Is there anything we can do? Is there a pay raise that we can match? Or is this just a career bump for your own personal gain that you have to see this through? If so, give us some time, to fill out some fillers out there in the coaching ranks to see if we can bring somebody in to kind of replace you immediately thereafter. It feels like this offseason, yes, there's been 3 assistant coaches within the last 3 or 4 weeks that have gone to greener pastures for their careers. But it also seems like Texas has then rehired and filled those holes pretty quickly, pretty seamlessly.
Yeah, I mean, within a couple days for the most part, and all seem to be popular hires amongst the ranks of peoples of opinions that, I think you and I care about.
And it's something you and I have discussed with previous coaching regimes or different programs. Hiring your best friends, maybe not the best idea when it comes to your coaching staff. Steve Sarkisian is just going around the country and finding where guys have had the most success, maybe given doing the most with the less amount of talent, I guess.
Yeah. And hiring your best friends as co-hosts as well. And then breaking up your friendship by being slanderous and then taking clips from it and posting it on social media and making things sound different than they are is also a bad thing to do.
It sounded like somebody's best friend was just really ungrateful for an opportunity of something.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that, because
that them two have talked about.
Here is my final statement on this: is I would ask, when is the first time you broadcasted?
The first time I ever broadcasted, like with a microphone in my hand, I was probably on like a first grade play or fifth grade play or something like that.
Related to with sports in a meaningful setting.
I did have to do like a kids flag football tournament for a job that I had in high school. They put me on PA announcement, thing.
Yeah.
I did some PA work for Texas or for Temple High School girls soccer before I went to Southwestern, and then whenever I got to Southwestern in college, I met somebody on my
I got you on the broadcast before you went to school, to be
right,
clear.
and I went to go visit you on just because I'm a good friend and you were lonely up there. And I went to go visit you, and I made the introduction myself to a Sir Kurt Caden, voice of the Southwestern Mound Builder. Shout out Kurt, and he said, "Man, I don't know what it is, but you have got it," and he just put me on air.
Oh man. Well, you know what? I might call Kurt and get him on here just
actually,
to prove
hey,
this wrong.
that's actually a great idea. We should actually reach out to him, see if he wants to join the podcast.
That'd be a fun off season. Bring him on. The one who molded these two fine gentlemen you see in front of you now.
He's our role model. He is our mentor. He kind of got us to where we are today. And so would not be here without Kurt Caden. But yeah, no, Jake.
Or for you, Jake Jimerson.
In all reality, so I was in a bit of an impasse in my life of like, do I want to go to college? Do I want to just go join the workforce? I know I like sports. I know I enjoy talking about sports. I'm not athletic, nor do I have the build to actually play sports at this point in my life. And so Jake was already in college at Southwestern College in Winfield, Kansas. And he said, "Hey man, why don't you just come visit? Just check it out. I'm doing broadcasting. And I've been calling basketball games, and I'm on the student radio. And this guy, Kurt Caden, he's a super cool guy. You should just come up here, hang out with me for a weekend, meet him, see what happens." And I went to a game that Jake was actually calling that weekend on my visit. And him and Kurt were like, "Hey, we got an extra headset. You want to jump on?" I've never heard of these two teams. I've never seen a single player play for either of these two teams. I've never even heard of these schools before. And I jump on air, and I'm sitting there with the headset, and Jake and Kurt are just kind of, doing their pregame. They're kind of just getting the flow of things, and they're riffing off of each other pretty well. And then Kurt drags me in, and he's like, "So Tanner, what do you think? What are you expecting out of this game?" And I said,
"Yeah."
And then Jake had to kind of jump in and was like, "Yeah, no, I think you gotta watch out for the three whenever you're watching these two teams." And then about maybe halfway through the first quarter, for me, I was like, I don't know these teams. Like, let me just watch.
Yeah, once you had some time to warm up, and then your only problem for a little while was just being with basketball. You have to be really short as a color commentary, and then once obviously you later on adjusted that. It's just like, I remember the first time I did a play-by-play call, but it was my freshman year, and the women's basketball team, when I was there, my first year, they were like top 10 in the country, and they were playing another top 5 team in the country. It was at home on Halloween night. Kurt was like, "You want to do your first play-by-play?" I was like, "Sure." And then I realized how big of a game it was, and all these alumni were tuning in. It was like one of the most listened to games. It was a sold out arena. It was wild. And it was like what I imagined doing cocaine is like. It was just the biggest rush. As soon as you start going, it's just the biggest rush. But Tanner Carlson did get his start from me, and then has the nerve to come on and make it just completely twist the narrative around this podcast, acting like he wouldn't have been my first call as well. Just doing what he does, just twisting the knife. And if you see a new co-host soon, just know we mic and mic'd. And it was his fault. I don't even talk to him outside the podcast. No, that's not true. But
but with all that said, though, it's funny because from that day on, I have not gone a year of my life since that day. I've not gone a full 365 days without broadcasting, play by play at some level, some sport. I've done everything from college soccer. I've done high school football. I've done high school softball at the 3A level. I've called at the 5A level. I've called at the college level. I just, it is funny though, how that path has just kind of, it's something that I've never been able to do full time and support, like my livelihood off of it. I'd love to. But it's always been something that I've made sure has been part of my life because I fell in love with it. Like Jake said, I've become addicted to it. Because if football is like a soft drug, like a nice, even keel, easy flow and high of football, the moment basketball hits and you start doing play-by-play, that's the heavy duty stuff. That's the stuff that you get checked into rehabs for.
Basketball broadcasting with basketball play-by-play is more fun than doing football play-by-play for sure.
Yeah.
Basketball play-by-play to me is elevated, but football color commentating is a blast because then you really get to
you have a lot of time you get a lot of time to kind of bounce off on.
Basketball color is hard just because you don't want to repeat what the play-by-play, which a lot of people in today's big broadcasting, it's like big pharma, but big broadcasting, just repeat what the play-by-play guy says. And it drives me nuts. And it's like, that's not your job. No. Your job is to, in a short, concise manner, explain what opened the play up or explain something that the play-by-play broadcaster did not say.
Here's what I
always essentially the big picture.
Here's what I always tell my color guys. If I'm doing play-by-play now is I'm watching the ball. I have to see how the play is developing and what is happening on the court or the field. You tell me everything that is not evolving around the ball. You tell me all the things that's happening off the ball, then we'll have a good broadcast. I can almost guarantee you. You tell me what's happening on the offensive line, defensive line. Tell me what the linebackers are doing. Tell me what the receivers and corners are doing. You tell me all those things. I have to watch the ball. So, but anyway, we're going off on a whole other tangent. But yeah, Jake, I'm glad you brought that up, Jake. I was not going to segue to it, but I was.
Oh, shocker. I had that on the top of the dock, and conveniently it had not been brought up. Number one thing on the document, did not lead the show with it. Wasn't going to bring it up.
What?
Just
why would I?
This summary of our 2-decade plus friendship. That's all I can say.
And speaking of embarrassing relationships, Rodney Terry and the men's college basketball program is an embarrassment of showcasing one of the worst losses in program history. Jake, is that fair to say, against a winless South Carolina team?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple in the like 5-6 years ago that were worse. Chaminade or whoever it was in Maui, that one sticks out. Radford. I believe that was at home. I mean, there's been some worse non-conference losses against just schools that don't even ever make the tournament. It's like a 16 seed.
Yeah.
But this is, to me, worse.
At least ACU makes the tournament. Like people know who ACU is. Like that was
to me, losing to ACU in the tournament, it's embarrassing and it sucked. But like it's March Madness. Just that happens sometimes.
That happens all the time. Yeah.
It's a different. I mean, they were in the tournament. It's like a 4 seed or 3 seed, whatever it was. Like it happens. Virginia losses the 1 seed 1 year, then won the national title the next year. Like it's just March Madness. But losing in a game against a winless conference team, in a game that you have to win, and getting embarrassed, just not even close, not even competitive,
wire to wire.
And just FYI, I was watching. So I met one of my buddies. We decided to have a little date night. I cheated on you. Sorry, Tanner. Okay. And
we're in an open relationship.
His wife was doing something that evening. My wife had a friend over, and I was like, he was like, let's have a little date night. So we go to a bar, and he's a Mizzou fan. So he's watching the Mizzou game against Arkansas. They lost too, by the way. We cursed each other. And then I asked the person at the bar, like, can you turn on the SEC network? Don't have the SEC network. So I have this game on my phone like a effing loser in the bar. And I'm having a lot of drinks. And then the game is happening in front of my eyes. And I'm like, I'm watching this game on my phone because I have to at this point. And so I added more drinks. And I'm just looking like the biggest loser in the bar, watching Texas get their ass beat by South Carolina on my phone while sitting there drinking. He's watching Mizzou lose to Arkansas, and we're just both
losers together.
Yeah, I guess, but we agree we can never watch basketball again together because that was cursed. But
at least not this year.
No, but Will Wade. I'd be making that call. He's at McNeese. I'd be calling Patino. I've already said that. I don't think he's realistic because his buyout is insane.
Yeah.
At St. John's, Mark Few at Zaga. You have TJ Otzelberger at Iowa State, Nate Oates at Alabama. Sampson, of course, is a name you're going to call at Houston, though he is a little older, but those are some names we both had contributed by writing on, but I took them all because screw you. I get to do what I want.
Yeah, that's fine.
And so, yeah, I mean, I'm just to say I'm ready to start discussing names because I don't know if he's going to get rid of Rodney Terry this year. I know from what I've read, he was really wanting to wait until next year, but I don't know if Rodney Terry's going to give him a choice.
Yeah.
Because if you don't make the turn, I mean, I know they've had injuries. We did talk about that. I don't care. Losing at South Carolina cannot happen.
Yeah.
Especially, it's not like it was they're coming off of some big wins. They're locked into the tournament and they just had a lapse. That would be more understandable. No, you came into this having to win.
Yeah. They came off of a win against a Kentucky and was like, I guess they were just like, oh, we're shoo-in now. Not the case. Absolutely not the case. They're one of the last 4 in right now, according to bracketology. I think they're last 4 buys or something along those lines. So they're one of the last 8 teams in the tournament. So there's not a whole lot of room for error at this point in Texas's season. And you have another slip up like you had against South Carolina, or you drop a second game to Arkansas. You're probably fitting right in there with Oklahoma as one of the last 4 teams out of the tournament.
They're out. They're not making the tournament. I'll just say it now. They're out of the tournament. They're not making it. I have no belief.
I almost don't want to watch this team play in March Madness, to be honest. I almost would rather
I will still take making the tournament over not making it every single time. 100 times out of 100 times, I would take it. Also, I'd like to see Trey Johnson play in a couple extra games that aren't NIT related in his, because this is going to be the only year we get to see him, and I do like watching him play basketball. But this game was it was pathetic basketball. We were watching the game and, Mizzou had 48 points at halftime, and I'm sitting there halfway through the second half and like, we're still not to your halftime total, Sean. I'm just looking over at him and I'm a little, under the influence at that point. I'm just like, we're not even to your halftime total yet.
Yeah. And you're halfway through the second half.
Yeah. It was, I mean, I just don't understand how they can go through such scoring droughts when having so many capable scorers on the team. That is one thing they don't lack.
Yeah. Yeah. And individual scorers at that. They've got guys that can ISO up, and that's all they play is ISO basketball. So the fact that they can't even do that right tells me there's something deeper here than just the talent and the players on the floor.
And they're terrible defensively. They force no turnovers. Every team ends in the single-digit turnovers, and only 1 or 2 of them will be forced. They're an average rebounding team at best, which is probably better than what I expected from them rebounding. But yeah, it's not fun basketball to watch. Their chances of making this game plummets their chances. I mean, it really does. You have to win 3 out of your last 4. And I would not pick them to win at Arkansas or at Mississippi State right now.
Yeah.
And at this point, Georgia and Oklahoma are toss-ups at home.
No, you think Oklahoma's just going to lie over and say, "Oh yeah, no, Texas can beat us. Yeah, sure, we'll give them that one." No, Oklahoma is Oklahoma. They're going to try to beat you at any turn they get. Now they don't have a great track record against you over the last 13 years, whatever it's been. But yeah, it does seem like Texas is definitely trajecting towards in the wrong direction of making a tournament game. All right, Jake, let's go ahead and wrap up the show with some baseball, softball talk. Texas baseball sweeps Dartmouth in the major polls, now ranks as high as 6th. That is the Perfect Game USA rankings, as low as 15th. But Texas beats Dartmouth 4-3 on Friday, 3-2 on Saturday, 4-1 on Sunday. Horrible weather games. It affected the bats. It affected the pitching. But Texas got the job done. But yeah, just terrible weather to have to play in early in the season. If this game was played in perfect conditions, I'm sure Texas kind of takes care of business in a more resounding fashion. But hey, you take a sweep when you can take a sweep, and I'm pleased with the team's performance up to this point.
Yeah, I mean the bats were local, but also this is a fair. I think what's probably going to be a big hitting roster, and the wind was blowing into them, and it was windy and cold. Sunday was better weather, but it still wasn't like perfect.
Well,
But it was
that
a
you're
lot
already
better.
you're at the end of your depth chart pitching wise too at that point. So
Yeah, and so they won all three. They found ways to gut out wins when they weren't playing their best as well. And then obviously the weather in those first couple games. And so it's a very good start to the season. Going 2-1 in Arlington, the run roll against what appears to be maybe a little better than expected Ole Miss team, nearly run rolling Oklahoma State, and then getting a sweep in their first series at home. Things seem to be trending in the right direction within this season alone, which really gives me hope for what Slosh is doing with this program right now. And so I'm feeling good about it. And I watched I probably was able to catch about 15 of the innings this weekend. I watched a good amount of the Texas Dartmouth series. I was watching at work on Friday as well, but the bullpen was really good this weekend. That I will say that for me was the biggest positive. They had 15 innings, 1.2 ERA, 4 walks, 14 strikeouts. This bullpen can become consistent for Texas. I think they're going to be able to surprise some people in the SEC, including myself.
And the number one team in the country goes down to Cal Poly over the weekend as well. Texas A&M suffers their first loss of the season. I believe LSU and Tennessee are still no. LSU had a loss. Tennessee is
LSU
undefeated.
lost to Omaha.
Yeah, and Tennessee still undefeated as the top 3 team in the country. And so the SEC will keep an eye on them. We'll kind of just give you some brief updates from time to time if anything happens. But yes, Texas A&M did lose. The number one team in the country lost to Cal Poly on Sunday in their 3-game series. They did beat Cal Poly Friday, Saturday, but dropped Sunday. And then lastly, Jake, Texas softball did suffer their first loss of the season. It was to a ranked opponent, number 20 Stanford, but they did pick up a win against number 11 Arizona over the weekend, and then went 4-1 in the Hillenbrand Invitational, wins over Colorado State, Arizona, UC Davis, but 15-1 to start the season. A lot to build on, but still a good start. You win 15 of your first 16 games. I don't think anyone's complaining too much.
Yeah, I thought they were going to lose their number one spot to Oklahoma from the first polls I saw come out earlier today at the day that we're recording. They were still number one. I think mainly because OU, I don't think has really played anyone yet in softball. And so still possibly number one because they do have some already very solid wins on the resume.
Ranked wins, yeah.
The Stanford game was definitely disappointing. They got kind of dominated in that game. But you're going to lose some games. They've already played 16 games, which is just crazy.
Yeah.
The season's been going for like 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks at most.
It feels like it started in February and we're not even through February yet.
Yeah, and they've played 16 games. That's a lot of softball. And so great start to the season, and we're going to keep monitoring how they're both doing and watching games when we can. I will say when it gets to conference time, that's when I'll be really going out of my way to make sure I'm watching all the games, but I've caught a good amount of baseball already, and I've watched probably 4 or 5 of the softball games.
Well, right now, Jake, we're in the thick of hockey season starting to ramp up, getting into playoffs, so we're occupying our nightly, evenings.
We might become a Dallas Stars podcast in June.
In a little bit, there'll be some Stars talk for any Stars fans who are listening to us. We'll catch you up on it for sure. But between hockey season going on and between the Masters right around the corner, and then obviously March Madness, there's not a ton of time to fit baseball into the schedule as of right now, but we will get there. Like Jake said, once conference play gets going, we'll really be more in tune with what's going on. But just for everybody, Incarnate Word, Texas is playing in Austin tonight at 6:30 against Incarnate Word. And then this weekend, starting Friday, Saturday, Sunday, is the Las Vegas Classic. You got Washington, Texas Tech, and Illinois on the docket this weekend coming up for Texas baseball. So should be a fun weekend. Tune in if you can. Support these players, support the teams, win, and if you can, we are trying to do our best and a heavy slate. One thing that I forgot to mention, and we'll wrap up the show with this athletic season, Texas has been ranked number 1 in 6 different sports. Football, they were ranked number 1 for a small stretch of time. Volleyball, they were number 1 in the country. Softball, they're currently number 1 in the country. Men's tennis, men's swimming and diving SEC champions, and women's SEC champions, by the way. They took that this last weekend. So quick shout out to the swimming and diving teams securing another SEC championship under the docket this sports athletic season. And then obviously with women's basketball now being ranked number 1, those are 6 sports where the Texas Longhorns have been ranked number 1 at some point during this athletic season. And so that chase for the President's Cup continues, as it will continually do with Chris Del Conte at the helm. And I just really love where this program as a whole is right now.
Yeah, they've won back-to-back Directors' Cup, something Stanford has typically won. And Chris Del Conte said it matters to him, and it should, because it is a snapshot of what your entire athletic department does. It's not just about football, baseball, and basketball. It's about the ladies' sports. It's about soccer. It's about cross country. It's about track. It's about swimming and diving.
Rowing,
you want to
track and field,
hockey, even though it technically doesn't count for Texas.
Not for Texas, but Texas is they're going to the national tournament in whatever division of hockey that they are in.
I think it's Division II is where they're technically at, but I would love to see that get added as a varsity sport. They took down the number 1 team in the country this year in D1. Yeah. I would love to see it. I already talked about how I need to buy one of their jerseys. So that's another one that, we'll try to keep updated on what they do in the tournament. I know it's not tech. It's a sports club or whatever it's technically considered, but I don't care. It's still Texas. And it's cool to see that they're doing well in hockey as the sport of hockey continues to just grow its roots.
And there's obviously some resources going there. I mean, you're not just going to be able to put a club together and then, there's obviously some success being built and taken seriously within that athletic department to kind of help that hockey club, kind of develop the way it has.
And maybe giving Del Conte a reason to think about it. I know it's tough to do. You got to bring in 2 sports essentially when you do it, but man, it'd be cool and I'm biased too, just because of how much I've grown to love the sport of hockey over the last decade. But I would love to see that. I
wonder if they could do, Jake, you know more about this than I do. Esports, that can be a co-ed sport, can it not?
Yeah, I mean, it is a co-ed sport.
Right. And so, but you can have like co-ed players.
I don't know if it's like officially under NCAA sanctions is the only issue.
So like a Title IX thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it counts towards that, but that is a good question. I did play esports in college. I couldn't play football. I messed my body up way too early in my career. But I did play esports in college, so that's the background of him bringing that up.
Yeah, right. So anyway,
I'm a nerd.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this episode up. Jake, we release these episodes Tuesday through Saturday at noon each and every day of the week, 5 days a week for your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns right here on All in Horns, brought to you by Rogue Sports Network. For Jake Jimerson, I'm Tanner Carlson. As always, ladies and gentlemen, welcome.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.